Tatiana Nunez. I'm a graduate teaching fellow here at Baruch, and I'm here with Chris Scott, who's the director of our upcoming reading of Hedda Gabler. So, Chris, why don't you tell us a bit about how you got involved with this project?
Well, I started teaching here in 2007, and around 2011, Eric Krebs, the head of the theater chair in the Fine and Performing Arts Department, had asked me if I wanted to start taking over and creating these basically abbreviated versions of these classic plays to be taught and to be performed for students in the Great Works classes. So he handed it to me, and I was thrilled because I love the classics, and it was a great opportunity to work on these great plays.
Great. Why do you think Hedda is relevant today?
Hedda, she's always relevant. I think it's great to have this idea of a woman in power, and I also think that what I like about Hedda is that she has these feminist ideals in many ways. She was a woman who had moved greatly beyond the restrictions of the Victorian world, and she was being suffocated by it. So I think it's important that we see the evolution of a woman's role in society, and her struggling with those issues, I think, are a great way for all our students to see how women have evolved to today.
And another question which I wanted to pose was, do you feel that it changes anything to view Hedda as being pregnant throughout the entire play?
That's a very informative question, because I was just thinking about that today. So before we were coming here, it's kind of one of the eternal questions: is she or is she not pregnant? And they lived at a time where you had to wait a while before you could find out if you were really with child. So all these hints in the beginning, then Aunt Julie talks about her putting on weight. And this is all sort of hinting at either she is pregnant or what people expect of her. Right. So it's a wonderful thing that, and this is the beauty about theater, as I said before, it is in it being a blueprint. The options that the author has given you to fill it with this kind of life. So this question about, I think in the process of the play, the actors playing Hedda and myself would talk about that and how that will inform her performance. Right. And how she deals with everybody in the play. Having that knowledge of, am I pregnant? What does that mean? Is that yet another weight around my neck to an already oppressive world that I'm living in? Certainly, yeah.
So another question I had was, how do you, since this play is it's a condensed version of Hedda Gabler, right? How long is it? It's about 60 minutes?
Yeah. It runs about an hour. When we do these pieces, they run anywhere from an hour, sometimes an hour and 10 minutes, 70 minutes. Okay. And my goal is to keep a full experience of seeing the play. So I call them distillations, because I try to boil it down through my reading and my getting to the core relationships in the play and what's most important, and focus in on that. So the play itself is done with 4 actors. Okay. And there's one person that doubles as the judge and Eilert Lovborg. Oh, interesting. And so there's George, there's Hedda, and there's Mrs. Elfstead. Yes. So those are the 3 characters that we concentrate on in the play.
So you cut out like the aunts and stuff?
Yeah, and they're referred to, and the way it's that's covered is the actors do some narration. Yeah, okay. As we go through it, they talk to the audience directly, and they refer to these people, but when we get to the core emotional scenes, what's the most conflict, because that's what we want to see. We want to see people working out their stuff.
Right.
We go to the theater. We don't go to the theater to watch people who have happy lives and can pay their bills and, my kids are great. No, we go to see people who are trapped. Is Hedda gonna, chew off her leg to get out of her trap? We want to see what she does. And that's sort of the brilliance of what Ibsen does, is puts her in this situation, and we get to, I think, sympathize with her.
Yeah, I certainly do. I think ultimately we do sympathize with her. Another thing that I wanted to ask about your production was how objects figure into it, because they're so important to the plot. The manuscript, Aunt Julie's hat, and items like this. So in a staged reading, which items are you focusing on, or objects are you focusing on?
The most important in this, because we reduce a lot of the Aunt Julie stuff, happens before we start, but we talk about it, and that's a big part of the introduction, is that Hedda has insulted Aunt Julie's hat.
Right.
And then we go right into the first scene. We do a little setup of where we are, what's happened, and she talks about the withering flowers. We know it's going to be fall. So the main objects are, of course, the gun.
Yes, of course.
Guns are always important. And everything's talked about Chekhov's gun.
Right.
It's just a gun. It's got to be used later. Or in some way it has to, it has weight. And
right,
so
definitely.
The guns are there. And the manuscript. The manuscript is used because we do watch Hedda destroy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is wonderful. And the other object that we really sort of use is the alcohol.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we use we concentrate on those things because it's such a temptation. She eggs him on. She really sort of needles him out of her own sense of frustration, and she doesn't want anybody else to have him.
Right.
So she's going to destroy this thing that she thinks she loves. I don't. I always wondered, does Hedda know what love is?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that all the objects that you've chosen to focus on are about destruction, ultimately, which is what much of the play is about.
Right.
I've also been interested in this idea, as I've reread the play myself, of Hedda as a kind of, almost like a director. Like, she wants to direct the people around her to fit her ideals of beauty or of ugliness or destruction.
Yeah.
But she's not in a role in her society where she can act as a director, where she can really direct her own life.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's a really keen observation, and I was comparing her in my mind today, coming here, to the lead character in Les Liaisons Dangereuses.
Okay, I was just reading about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and she is another woman trapped by conventions of society, and she too manipulates people.
Right.
In that way, because in fact, her and Hedda have a lot in common, because she talks about controlling her emotions. She has a whole speech about jabbing a fork into her hand at a dinner table and not letting it show at all. And as we were saying, yeah, so Hedda, who has no control over her own life,
right,
really tries to control everything else around her.
Right.
Because she, in some ways she's almost, I don't want to say neutered, but she's impotent.
Yes, she's impotent.
And there's no, of course, no irony that she is called, she retains, the title retains her father's name.
Yeah.
And sort of living up to this idea of who her father was. And, being that watchful gaze over the whole proceeding.
There's the portrait, right, hanging in their, living room, I think.
Oh, yeah, he's overlooking the whole thing. So it's interesting. And it's interesting you talked about destruction in those elements, because you think about, these classical male roles as a lot of times men are the destroyers. They create war, and women are thought of as the nurturers and giving life to giving life, creation, that
Yeah.
whole thing. And she's really striving to be in touch with both of those things within herself. So,
well, I think that she wants even if she can't have the beauty and the nice things, I think that she wants the destruction to be beautiful. Like she speaks of, spoiler alert, Loveborg's suicide. She wants it to be a beautiful death, a beautiful suicide.
right.
Right? And then when it's not that, she's upset by this.
Yes. She has this romantic image of how she wants things to be. And when the judge comes back and he, tells her exactly how he died, it destroys the things that she was holding on to, the things that kept her alive in an odd way.
Yeah, definitely.
That the idea of that the way she felt most alive was by destroying other things.
And I think that it also speaks to, I mean, the play is very concerned with ideals and idealism, and how do you mediate between the ideals that you have of how you want your life to be and what your life actually is on the ground. What if you can't integrate these things? What if the ideals that you have don't match the time that you live in? I think that's one thing that maybe still resonates with people today when they read it, when they watch it, this pain of ideals versus existence.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is eternal. That I think we as human beings are constantly dealing with the loss of what our ideals are, and not being able to achieve certain things. And no matter how much all of this stuff around us change, there's still that human part of us that is always the same.
Yeah.
That will keep being human, and that's part of the beauty about beauty of being human. That's what I emphasize to all my actors, and when I teach acting class here is that, and what's so great about these writers of this period, they were exposing the complexity of who we are and all our as I say, we want to see everything, warts and all.
Definitely. So thanks, Chris Scott, for joining us, and don't forget to check out his production of Hedda Gabler for Baruch's Joel Siegel Great Works series, October 22nd through 25th.
Yeah, and I just want to add that being here in New York, I have access to a pool of professional actors who love to come in and participate and create these characters. So you can also check out the times on the Baruch, the BPAC Baruch Performing Arts Center website, and get our exact times and locations. So we will see you there. Thanks for having me here today.
Thanks for coming.